Hong Kong for the last generation. They have a choice.
The Republican candidate
I did
for
not
governor.
have sexual relations with
And I
that woman.
realized that this is something he is
We're not going to be able to solve our problems if we get distracted by sideshows and carnival barkers.
One Republican, one Democrat, and you discuss the issues that matter in today's local, state, national, and global politics. Hosted by Steve Hickson with co-hosts John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey. This is Backfire.
Welcome to another edition of Backfire with John Stanberry, Franklin Chansey, and myself, Steve Doball Hickson. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Oh, I forgot my chief engineer here, Daniel Brantley. That always gets the applause.
The guy in charge of the applause button gets the applause.
The guy who runs Whoop Worldwide headquarters.
The brain trust of Whoop FM.
It has been an exciting week, hasn't it? Lots of news this week. Let's start out with the Boy Scouts.
The what?
The Boy Scouts.
I missed this one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The Boy Scouts.
I'm sorry. They're not the Boy Scouts anymore.
They're the Scouts.
The Scouts.
They're the Scouts. What's the new name? Boy Scouts? What's the new name?
Scouts, I think.
Scouts USA?
Yeah, they've been for years.
Scouts USA.
They've kind of casually been referred to as scouting for years.
Scout Me. That's the new marketing campaign's logo for them.
Did you see in that article, Steve, the Girl Scouts are nervous because they've been accepting so many girls in the Boy Scouts. They're kind of scrambling to ensure their memberships.
Well, that's what this is about. I'm not a huge fan of it. I'm not sure some of it's not political correctness as well, but my brother's Scoutmaster Troop 10 has been for, 20 years probably now. Cecil was telling me that they have a lot of families that like the teaching and like the philosophy, the still conservative philosophy. I don't agree with some of their recent decisions that, quite frankly, they were extorted by Coca-Cola and some big corporate donors into accepting. But having said that, there are families that are happy with scouting, and they want that opportunity for their girls. And they're specifically not happy with the prospect of going to the Girl Scouts. And so Cecil has said to me that that's what this reflects more. It reflects trying to give an opportunity to girls to have the same type of program that the boys have had for years.
What is the Girl Scout program? Something wrong with it?
Its leadership is decidedly more left-wing and liberal. If you look at these things through a political...
I thought they were decidedly more capitalist.
No, they're actually very liberal. I've talked about the hypocrisy involved here. They've allowed lesbian leaders for years in the Girl Scout, but they won't allow a father to go on an overnight with the girls. Now, look, I don't think fathers ought to be allowed to go on overnights with the girls. But how can you say that a heterosexual man, can't go on an overnight with little girls because he might be tempted to do something improper, but a lesbian woman who has sexual interest towards women is allowed to go? I mean, there's no logical sense there. And they've had that position for years. And I will tell you, as an Eagle Scout, when my daughter was in Girl Scouts, I went down. They were at summer camp, and I met them one morning. You could go down during the day. You couldn't spend the night. And so I met them down there. And first off, the campsite had a refrigerator and a freezer and a stove. And I will tell you, as an Eagle Scout, especially at Troop 10, we never had any of those conveniences on our camping trips. But having said that, one of the things they were supposed to do that day was build a fire. So they've got their sticks piled up, and they've got their kindling, and they set it on fire, and then they took a piece of paper, and they start fanning it. And I said, no, girls, that's not how you do that. I said, here. And I got down, and I put my head down low under the fire and began to blow under the fire. The leader saw me doing this, came screaming over, no, they're not allowed to do that. And I said, what do you not mean they're not allowed to do that? That's how you build a fire. Oh, no, a spark might fly up and get in their hair or hit them in the face, so they're not allowed to blow on the fire. And I just looked at them, and then I said something about a pocket knife. Oh, no, they're not allowed to have knives. So no pocket knife in the woods. And then we're hiking, and there's a field that's been flooded. There's a beaver dam down in the low corner of it where the creek came through. And I was explaining to the girls about the beaver dam and telling how farmers would blow them up, and the next night, they were rebuilt. And so I walk out on the beaver dam, and there's always sticks out there that they've chewed on, and they're actually pretty. They chew up the bark. And I picked one up and showed it to them. Well, one of the girls said, "Can I have it?" I said, "Sure," and I gave it to her. Well, then a couple of other girls said, "Oh, I want a stick." So I walked back out. Well, at that point, one of the leader's children burst out crying that I was tearing the beaver dam down and the poor beavers, and I got fussed at for that and made to put all of the sticks back. And I did explain, by the way, there used to be a lot of animals that lived in this field before the beaver flooded it. And so that's sort of the politically correct atmosphere that you'll find in the Girl Scouts these days.
How in the world can something get this messed up?
So
I thought they just baked cookies.
My roundabout point to all of that was that some families want the same kind of little more practical outdoor teaching. And the Boy Scouts have had girls in it for years in the Explorer program and some of the older programs.
They camp with them too, don't they?
Now, in this case, from what I understand, they are going to keep the girls and the boys completely separate. They'll be separate programs. And they also, I think, allowed autonomy to the individual
So the girls
troops.
in the Boy Scouts now, they don't go camping.
The girls that have been in the Boy Scouts previous to this have been in the Explorer packs, which is an old, that goes from, I think, 16 up to like 21, and they're nearly all oriented around a career path. For example, there'll be an Explorer troop assigned to a ambulance service, and that's what they're studying, that's what they're learning. Mm-hmm. So those have been older children that have been allowed to be together. The younger program, from what I understand, you'll have a separate track for boys and girls, and they'll be kept separate.
10 to 17 is the age group, I think, for the Boy Scouts.
So
I keep calling it the Boy Scouts. I can't help but call it the Boy Scouts.
I understand.
I just
separate but equal. Now, I may be wrong about that. That's kind of secondhand through my brother. I haven't looked at the exact details of how they're putting it together. Personally, I hate it for the girls, but I think it dilutes the program of the Boy Scouts. I think all the decisions in the last 3 or 4 years have destroyed the program. And I've met a lot of people that used to be very supportive of the Boy Scouts that are not donating money anymore, or they're donating money to a specific troop that they know is still going kind of the old school.
Well, I had the Boy Scouts came up and camped right out by me a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
Enjoyed that. I enjoyed all the kids over there on the little island at Parksville. Yeah, they were over there gathering firewood in their canoes.
Well, the Boy Scouts are allowed to blow under a fire, which, just because I don't know 5,000 years of collected history have said that's the proper way to get a fire going.
Yeah, why hadn't the girls dropped the word girls?
Well, I'm sure they will soon, because girl, is a prejudiced term. Girl, boy, prejudiced term. We have to be the Z or Zer Scouts, I guess.
Iowa just approved the most restrictive abortion bill in the United States.
Yep.
If there's a heartbeat, there's no abortion.
The detection of the fetal heartbeat.
I'm sure there'll be a lot of
Look, we're the most liberal, one of the most liberal abortion countries in the world of developed countries. All through Europe, abortions are not allowed after 20 weeks. In a lot of the countries in Europe, it's 12 weeks. That's much more restrictive than our laws. So Europe is actually more conservative on abortion laws than we are right now.
In all likelihood, that particular provision, though, will be declared unconstitutional.
Probably, because we're crazy.
Where does it stand right now?
Well, let me tell you how disingenuous the abortion rights people are. There have been plenty of bills that Republicans have passed to require abortion centers to show the sonogram and play the fetal heartbeat to the mother. And the abortion rights groups have vigorously fought that and said that that's unreasonable and unfair, and they shouldn't be forced to have the mother listen to the heartbeat or look at the sonogram. Now think about that for a minute. Why? I mean, if there's no problem with this and it's not an issue, why would it be so wrong to have the mother listen to the fetal heartbeat before she has the child aborted? You know, we do that before almost every other medical procedure. Here's your cancer. Here's what we're going to remove. Here's your broken bone. But they have violently fought against requiring abortion centers to even show a sonogram. Well, obviously, you know why. Because it's a human life. And in their heart of hearts, most people know it's a human life.
Oh, well. Stormy. A storm is coming.
Much ado about nothing. Look,
a storm is coming.
Didn't look like much ado about nothing yesterday, though, did it?
Wait a minute. A storm is coming, according to Stormy.
Uh-huh.
Did you watch Saturday Night Live?
I saw a replay of that clip.
A storm is coming.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't it amazing where this?
Well, what's amazing is that the national media didn't do this with people like, I don't know, let's say Juanita Broaddrick, all the women that Bill Clinton. And look, I'm not defending either one of them on that issue from a marital fidelity standpoint, but it's amazing that the media not only didn't have any interest in people like Juanita Broaddrick, they actually actively suppressed those stories. Just like they actively suppressed the picture of Louis Farrakhan and President Obama together.
But a storm is coming.
Mm-hmm.
Stormy.
Now, let's think about that for a minute. What would be more troubling to you, that your president 12 years ago had a moment of infidelity with a porno star, or that your president had been palling around with a anti-Semitic, terror-supporting demagogue?
Is there no end to the hypocrisy? Come on, people.
Well, Stormy.
No. Here, let me read you something.
Okay, go ahead.
Who said the God of the Bible says what one does in private does matter? If he will lie to or mislead his wife and daughter, what will prevent him from doing the same to the American public? Who said that?
Probably a Republican.
Franklin Graham in 1998 commenting on Bill Clinton. Here's Franklin Graham today. Trump's affair with Stormy Daniels is nobody's business.
Look,
really? I don't care what your opinion is.
I'll support you in
y'all
that.
just shut the heck up.
You know what, Franklin? I'll support you in that. I don't disagree at all about the hypocrisy. But my point is, on the problem is the power of the press, Franklin. How you can make an issue or suppress an issue. And this president doesn't suffer from that problem any more than previous presidents. Although I will have to say, George W.
From it all. Y'all just go,
George,
no big deal.
well, just like you all did with multiple women who actually were probably raped by Bill Clinton.
You know what?
Raped.
Okay, you can blame us for
at
that.
Least this
but
was,
guess what?
But Franklin, at least this was consensual. Bill Clinton was raping women.
We don't know what was consensual with the guy who bragged about just reaching out and grabbing people.
Well, Paula Jones said she was pushed up against the wall after being ushered in by armed
My point is just this. How can you possibly justify the conniption y'all had about Bill Clinton? And you did.
Because he lied under oath in a federal court. Because he lied under oath.
And then look at Donald Trump and go, okay.
Because I wasn't upset that he had infidelities. I was upset that he lied under oath.
That is not what y'all were saying.
Lied under oath, committed perjury.
That is not what y'all were saying.
Well, let me ask you a question about Stormy from a legal perspective, okay? Mm-hmm. It's my understanding Stormy agreed not to talk about this for $130,000. Am I right?
That's supposedly the facts.
Okay. Now then, she was paid $130,000. There's no denying that. She knows that, right?
Agreed.
Okay. So what should she have done?
What should she have done when?
When she got her
First of all, let me start off by saying I don't know what the facts were. Okay.
Well, I'm just trying to
because the president's given 4 different sets
Well,
of
let's
facts
just.
about
Well,
it. So I don't know what.
If you want to know what the facts are, just listen to Stormy's lawyer.
That the non-disclosure is not enforceable. So she's admitting that she signed a non-disclosure and accepted money to non-disclose.
The president initially said, though, he didn't know anything about it.
Well, the
Now he says he
non-disclosure
does.
apparently is between the lawyer and her, not
and
between
that-
Trump.
Well, and that raises other
What's that
questions.
got to do?
It may,
She
but the
signed a
point here is she
non-disclosure.
signed a non-disclosure.
And she got
Okay.
paid for it.
Okay.
After, I mean,
Well, there's also an allegation she got threatened, too. Whether that's true or false, I don't
wait a
know.
minute. Somebody came up to her at her car or something and threatened her, right?
It's
This is
no more.
another
It's
hearsay.
no more implausible, Steve, than we're having a conversation about a president paying hush money to a porn star and nobody cares.
Well, here's the
That's
problem.
not-
Franklin.
that's
Well,
here's the problem.
They
is
didn't care about Clinton getting
JFK didn't have to pay a porn star off because the press did it for free.
All I'm
press
saying
suppressed
to
it
you
for
is,
free.
y'all can't just switch horses and say now it doesn't matter.
FDR.
By the way, this is not the only one, you know. There's a Playboy Playmate who got the same deal.
Look, everybody knew who Trump was ethically when they elected him.
trying to get to a
and y'all are saying you don't care.
No, I'm not saying I don't care. I'm saying that he won an election with that out in the air.
I'm trying to get to a point I was making. Stormy's got a lawyer now.
Uh-huh.
Does he have any other clients? Do you know?
Apparently, he's a fairly successful lawyer now.
Well, he's full of bull. I can tell you.
Well, he
that.
wasn't full of bull last night. That's pretty disturbing stuff that came out.
What did he say last night?
Turns out that this shell company
Uh-huh.
that Cohen set up got almost $500,000 from guess who?
Russians.
Some Russians.
Oh, according to whom? According to whom?
Well, it was confirmed this morning by the New York Times who got.
Oh,
who
wait,
got
New York Times confirmed everything. They
Franklin,
confirmed
you're right.
all
You're
this
right.
Russian
Here's the
investigation.
that's
problem.
concerning.
Where was your concern that the Podesta group got that much money from the Russians? Because they did, and we proved that, and it was a blip on the radar of the news programs.
The first thing I would say about that is that Hillary Clinton wasn't president-elect. Number one.
Franklin, no, that's not my point. My point
it is the
to be
point.
perfectly
It
honest,
is the point.
The Russian oligarchs are into everything. In D.C., in New York, in the United Nations, they're everywhere.
Well, then
And
y'all
if-
ought to be concerned about
We
that.
are concerned
Are
about it,
ya?
but the point is, you have to be concerned about that overarching. You can't pick one case out and go, that case concerns us.
Well, that's the case he asked me about, John. So, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
About Stormy's, what do you call that magazine in New York?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Those things where they put the headlines on the front page and they sell them as to tabloids. The tabloid lawyer. He's the tabloid lawyer is what I see.
Okay.
He is.
He's a tabloid lawyer. I mean,
Well, it's like Gloria Allred, you know, she takes every case that walks in her door and says that they were abused. Sometimes she's correct and sometimes they're lying. But she doesn't care.
anyway. What do you think about what's going on right now with President Trump? Is he getting anything done?
Well, he's getting a lot done.
He's 50. Hey, his popularity's going up. Wonder why.
Because the American public sees the paychecks that they're getting. The tax bill is becoming more and more
78%
popular.
of Americans who were polled said they had seen no difference in their
You run on that,
paychecks.
Franklin.
Where are you
Run
getting
on
this
that.
information?
Run on that. I'm happy for you to run
I'm
on
not
that.
disputing what John said. I'm just talking about the underlying premise. If you're saying that's why his popularity is going up, I don't know that that's true or not.
The tax bill's popularity is steadily increasing. It has all along because the public was lied to by the media and the Democrats, and they're beginning to see. You can't. We have the lowest unemployment rate we've had, since before 2000.
Well, I'm
Black
sure
unemployment is at the historic lows.
Obama-
Hispanic
Obama
unemployment,
made all
historic
that happen.
lows.
Obama
According to
made all
Valerie
that.
Jarrett, she said it's all Obama.
That's all Obama. He made
So
all
anything
that.
bad when Obama took over was Bush. Anything good was Obama. And now that Obama's gone, of course, here's a real question for you. What Obama legacy after the Iran deal? There is no Obama legacy. He is a blip on the historical radar and will remain that.
The Real Clear Politics average of all the polls, which is what I look at. John will know what I'm talking about. They don't just talk about one poll or another. Trump has a 43.2% approval rating and a 52.7%
Which is
disapproval
higher than
rating.
Obama's at the same point in his presidency. It is. You want to check?
Yeah,
It's
actually
higher than
gone-
Obama's.
It's actually gone up higher than Obama's.
I will do just that. Well, I'll have to pull it up. I just looked up the first one here.
What's going on with the head of the CIA, Gina? Is it Haspel?
Haspel.
Franklin, why will the Democrats not approve her, you think?
Well, first of all, their Republicans are expressing some concerns also.
Like
it's
Rand
not
Paul.
it's not just Democrats.
Like Rand Paul.
Okay.
Well, there's two issues involved.
What are they?
Well, I think the larger one from a standpoint of whether she gets approved or not has to do with the destruction of some evidence that they're concerned about.
You mean did she erase with bleach pit 30,000 emails? Because that's not illegal anymore.
Okay, John.
It's not.
I'll just shut up and listen.
It's
let
not
you
illegal
listen to make
anymore.
sarcastic comments because.
Oh,
guess
you mean
what?
when I
Those
point
people-
out when I point out the hypocrisy of that statement you just made?
There's nothing. Then I guess the Republicans are being hypocrites
You
too,
defended
right?
Hillary deleting
I
and
didn't
bleach.
defend
Yes, you
anything.
did.
No, I didn't.
You
I
most
never
certainly
said
did.
a word about deleting emails, John. You just made that up.
Okay.
I've never once said that in here.
Okay.
Well, did they delete any emails?
Apparently so.
Okay, good. That's
But I didn't defend anybody deleting emails.
You supported Hillary
Whether
Clinton
I
and said it
supported
wasn't
her
an
or not,
issue.
I didn't say that was okay.
You said it's okay for you to vote for her. If it's okay,
I didn't say it's not okay to vote for Gina Haspel.
If you
I
can
said
vote
what the
for
issue
Hillary to be the leader of the free world, you're defending her deleting emails.
I love that argument, John. Let's talk about all the things you're defending in Donald Trump because you're supporting him now.
Let's talk about
Really? You want to
Gina
talk about all those things?
Frankly, I've argued
A
against most of
bigoted
those
sex offender? Are you kidding me?
bigoted sex
Yeah.
offender.
I'll stand by those words.
A bigoted sex offender.
Yeah,
Bigoted.
that's exactly
Now,
right.
how is he bigoted?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The white supremacists over here got some good guys in there, too. Really?
Look, Franklin,
There's a reason, John, that
he is
92% of
inarticulate.
white
He
supremacists
is
voted for Donald
inarticulate.
Trump.
He is inarticulate.
He's
and
not inarticulate,
he is
he's a
inarticulate. And that's a
He is a
Franklin,
bigot.
The man
We
hired
love
the
him,
first
Franklin.
woman
Hey,
supervisor
Franklin, the
of a
majority of the people
construction
love
job
him.
in the 70s. He has hired all kinds of blacks
Yes,
and
who also does
Hispanics.
not support him now.
I can tell you the majority of Americans love him, don't they?
No, they don't.
I think they do. Who elected him?
It wasn't a majority of Americans, Steve.
Well, he got elected. I'm sorry.
He did get elected, but he didn't get elected by a majority, and he didn't have a majority now.
Well, neither did Bill Clinton. Either
Didn't
time.
say otherwise.
Either time.
Although there were three candidates.
Either time. He never got over 50% of the vote.
Three candidates, right?
So what? If he was so great, he would have got over 50%.
Okay.
He never had.
Well, there were only
he never
two in
had.
this one,
He
and he
never
got
had.
50%.
Well, I want to get back to Gina Haspel. Why can we not get
First
the
of all,
head of this, a female?
First of all,
head
The
of
first female.
First of all,
ever.
none of-
Why do we have to go through all this crap every time we move?
first of
The
all,
Democrats.
nobody ever asked me here what I thought about her.
What do you
Did
think about her?
I would vote for her.
Okay, good.
However, it's not a stupid debate to be having. In fact, the fact that you don't want to have the debate is the reason
I didn't
she's
say
having
we
these
didn't
problems.
say we don't want to
Yeah,
have the
you
debate.
did.
No, we asked you to
just peed
justify
on it
the
like
Democrats.
Like it was illegitimate to even talk about
No,
it.
I didn't say that.
Yes, you
I'm
did.
proud of you for saying you'd vote for her.
Why?
Because
Well, Franklin, let's discuss the first openly gay ambassador that your party held up his nomination, his confirmation for months. Trump nominates the first openly gay U.S. ambassador. By the way, just like you were talking about the black vote, he gets pillared in the leadership of the gay community, but yet he's made the first openly gay nominated ambassador in history, and your party held his confirmation up for months and months and months. Why? Are you all bigots? Are you all prejudiced
They're against everything
homosexuals?
First of all, I don't know which one you're talking about.
He's the ambassador to Germany, and your party held his nomination up for months. And you want to know the back channel reason they did it? Because they didn't want Trump to get the mark in history as having nominated the first openly gay U.S. ambassador.
I thought the Democrats were for women's rights and for women to get ahead.
Well, unless you were raped by Bill Clinton.
Now, what's going on?
Oh, that was helpful, John.
Why-
That was really helpful.
Why would that?
In fact, John, that was so weighty and thoughtful that there's really nothing else for me to say with that mind-blowingly brilliant comment.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Why?
What do I think? I think that all of these nominees deserve to be treated fairly and equally.
Okay.
And equally means you got to answer questions about your background.
Well, how long does it take?
Well, she hasn't come for hearing yet. Guess who sets the hearing, Steve? Who sets the hearing, Steve? Who is it?
Franklin.
Is it the Democrats who set the hearing date? It's the Republicans.
But Democrats can put holes.
This is the same
That's what they
crap as
did. That's
usual.
what they did.
You guys are running
How long is
everything and can't get a darn thing done.
Well, you know why
And
we
it's
can't-
always somebody
you know,
else's
You know
fault.
why we can't get anything done, Franklin?
Why is that?
You watch the channel. It's the Democrats, the liberals, CNN, ABC, CBS, all the liberal networks. If they come around a little bit and just report a little bit of good things about what Trump's doing, I think his popularity would go up to about 800%.
Talk to Neil Cavuto about that.
Okay.
Did you see him?
No, what happened?
That's the Fox News commentator who said if the president would stop lying every single day, people would focus on his accomplishments. That he's just constantly doing it, and it's his own fault.
Actually, with the press, this is just off the top of my head. The last study I saw, over 91% of the stories are negative about
90%.
Trump.
90% of the stories are negative.
By the way, between May 9th and 15th of 2016, I'm sorry, I got to go back farther. I apologize.
Last month, he was ahead of Obama at that same point. I haven't
I
looked
got
at
to
it
go
this
back.
month.
I was looking at the wrong year.
Well, I want to get back to this Gina Haspel.
Gina Haspel is an effective agent, and she is a kind of hard-nosed agent. That's why the Democrats are against
Well,
her.
I saw last night some of the Democrats talking about it. They want her to promise not to be mean to anybody.
Well, the real question is the enhanced interrogation technique. She wasn't in charge of it, but she was probably middle management during that time, and she followed her orders. And the orders from the White House counsel was that was legal. Personally, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with pulling their fingernails off, but that's a whole different discussion. So she did what she was told to do by her higher authorities, and the Democrats now, probably the same way they were with the gay ambassador, they don't want Trump to get the credit for nominating the first female director of the CIA.
Well, let's just move on, because she's going to get nominated, so we might as well move on. It's just another delay tactic on the Democratic side.
Well, but
Let me
wait
ask
a minute,
you
wait a
this.
minute. Don't move on completely. Think about that for a minute, though. You're delaying having a
That's
director
exactly-
of the Central Intelligence Agency
That's it.
over political reasons.
That's it.
You are putting the safety and security of every citizen in this country at risk for your political reasons.
Well, that doesn't surprise anybody.
Okay.
Let me ask you, where in the world did Trump get $150 billion to give to Iran?
Obama.
I mean, where did Obama get $150 billion to give to Iran?
In
It's been
cash.
sitting. Sitting in our accounts since 1977,
You know, when they
78.
kidnapped 43 of our
We
citizens,
froze
40
their
people.
money in U.S. accounts, and the money that was given to them was their money.
But they
We
needed
didn't
it in
we didn't
cash
give a
so that
dime of
they
our
could
money
funnel
to
it to Hezbollah and Hamas and those people.
It was still their money, whether you put it anywhere. By the way, May 3rd to 9th, 2010, which would be the same period in that, Obama had a 50% approval rating and a 43% disapproval rating.
Quoting to CNN.
No.
Why did they not have a treaty when they did the $150 billion deal? Why wasn't that a treaty?
Oh, I can tell you why that wasn't a treaty.
Because it didn't go through Congress, right?
Well, no, there's a reason it didn't go through Congress. They couldn't get Democrats to back it.
That's what I'm saying.
Chuck Schumer was against it.
That's what I mean, it was a bad deal.
There were dozens of Democrats against it. They couldn't get it passed. And guess what? They told, matter of fact, on this show, Franklin, I said to you, the fact that he doesn't want to put this forward as a treaty means that it can be reversed with the flip of a switch by the next president. So this is a problem of Obama's creation.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's go down this list here. Defense Secretary James Mattis says he's read the text of the nuclear agreement 3 times and considered it to be pretty robust. Chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Joseph Dunford, Iran is adhering to its obligations, and a U.S. decision to quit the deal would have an impact on others. No, these are people that Trump has got in place.
Okay.
The head of the U.S. Strategic Command, John Hyten, Iran is in compliance with the agreement.
Technically,
And it's
Franklin.
our job.
how do you know
Franklin,
technically?
everybody knows that
It's our job to live up to that
how do
agreement.
you
Well, first
know
off,
that?
Franklin,
How
let-
do you know?
Head of the U.S. Central Command, Joseph Vogel, who says the nuclear deal is in our
Franklin,
interest.
let me ask you a question. No, I know that, but let me ask you a question. Do you do divorces?
I have, John.
All right, so when you all are doing divorces and you're trying to come up with a monthly support payment from, let's say you're representing the woman, and the man hides assets, and the court determines a monthly payment based on that, and then you subsequently find out that he hid assets, is he in compliance with the divorce decree? Is he?
Presumably not, John.
Why?
I don't know why all these Republicans I'm quoting are so
Iran
stupid.
lied on the front end, never fulfilled their original requirement, just like the guy just described to you, hid assets. And so he's not in compliance because he violated the agreement at the get-go.
Brent Scowcroft.
I don't care. They're all wrong.
How would you freaking know, John?
Because I'm not a moron who's got more interest in political worries than I do in looking at a situation and going, they're the number one state sponsor of terror. They're building weapons to deliver nuclear warheads,
How about
and
this
they're a
one,
threshold
How
country.
about this one? Israeli Defense Forces General Gadi Eisenkot, who says, with all its faults, the deal is working. How about award-winning Israeli military scientist Isaac Ben Israel?
When would they be able to have legal nuclear
A
weapons?
month after
How
it
about the
expires.
former director of the
1
spy
month
agency
after it
Mossad,
expires.
who says it provides a credible answer to the Iranian
Franklin,
military threat?
Guess what? None of them are
Do
in
you
the
think
place.
that's a good deal, Frank? Do you think this was a good deal?
I think it accomplished what it set out to do,
What?
which was to make it farther away.
10
from them-
years.
Well, actually, it
A
goes
month.
on about 15
1
years.
month.
Not 1 month, John.
They are 1 month away when this deal expires. They are 1 month away.
That is,
Franklin,
that is so false.
let me ask you a
It's not-
question. If you're Saudi Arabia and you know that this deal actually preserves their nuclear program, basically, and when the deal sunsets, they are completely able to restart, and within 1 month, that's by Obama's own people, about a month, they will have a nuclear weapon.
And all
Would
the-
that
and
not
all the-
inspire you to enter into the arms race and start building your own
And
nuclear
all
bomb?
of those agencies, the U.S., Britain, France, Italy, all of those people could all reimpose sanctions if they start doing that.
They're 1 month away when this
This made
expires.
no sense whatsoever.
1 month
Our
away.
allies are not
This
going
is
to
Senator
reimpose
Bob
the sanctions.
Menendez at the time, Democrat, New Jersey. The deal doesn't end Iran's nuclear program. It preserves it.
All those people over there in the Middle East being quoted all say, well, it's actually working pretty well. In fact, what we've actually seen, and contrary to all the rhetoric on television, is the Iranians and the Israelis have entered into a couple of joint projects together.
Well, I guess Netanyahu's an idiot, too.
Well, he
You know,
is
he's
under
the elected
indictment for
leader.
bribery and
he's
corruption,
the elected
John.
leader of Israel. And by the way, Franklin, why wasn't it a treaty? If it's so good, you've read all these people.
You're absolutely
why
right,
wasn't
John.
it? Why
You're
wasn't it a
absolutely
treaty?
right. It wasn't
Why
a treaty.
wasn't it
Because it
submitted?
wasn't passed by the United States Senate. That's why.
And why could it not do that?
Because nobody wanted it.
Because nobody thought it was in our best interest.
But Obama.
Not even the Democrats thought it was in our best interest.
All I'm telling you is
Not even
all
the
these
Democrats.
people think it's working. Even the president yesterday,
Well,
when
now,
he made his
let me
announcement,
give you
the
one
president didn't say they were
Let me
violating the
give you
agreement.
one tidbit. I do agree it's working. It is working perfectly for Iran. It is a great deal for Iran.
Dumbest deal ever been negotiated. Isn't that what Trump said it was?
That's what he said.
The dumbest deal ever
That's not what all
negotiated.
these Republicans who don't have to run for office, by the way, who are just doing their jobs, said.
All right.
They said otherwise.
Let me read you a quote from Obama at the time. What is a more relevant fear would be that in year 13, 14, and 15, they have advanced centrifuges that enrich uranium fairly rapidly, and at that point, the breakout times would have shrunk almost down to zero. That's Obama bragging on the deal. That's his only concern with the deal, Franklin.
No, that's not
Yes,
what it
that's a
said.
quote with the deal.
That's not what it said.
It
John.
is
You
what it
misquoted
said.
it.
This quote is from Obama himself
No,
at the time.
You're
I'm not, Franklin.
You're not setting forth what he's actually saying.
He's
there.
saying that
He's
with-
saying if you didn't do the
No, he
deal,
didn't.
that's what you would have
This was
got.
with the deal, Franklin. You're wrong. This was with the deal.
Stupid. Worst deal ever been negotiated. Now then.
Well, you explain to me why it's such a great deal for us to be opposed by all of our allies.
Well, both
the
former President Obama and the UN Secretary have admitted that Iran has violated, quote, the spirit of the deal. So you're right. As a lawyer, I'm sure you're happy with the technicality of the deal.
It's not
but the spirit of the deal
issue.
Obama has admitted that they violated the spirit.
Said yesterday they were complying with it.
With the
our allies said they were complying with it. No, they said they were complying with it. Our allies say that, and those same allies, no matter how you spin it, John,
so I take
ask our president not to do this.
Did that guy who hid his assets, did he comply with the deal, or did he break the deal at the very start?
I wasn't in that case, John.
Hey, let me just change the subject because we're not going to get Franklin to agree with us on anything like that, John, but that this was America's stupidest.
Agree or disagree? Call and tell us.
Nunez has threatened session.
614-555-53.
What do you think about that, guys?
I think that it's laughable.
The FBI stonewalling?
The stories that I've read.
Why won't they turn over any of this stuff?
Well, first of all, they have turned over a lot of it.
Wait a minute. I saw a page blacked out, a whole page blacked out.
Well, yeah, because they're blacking out who the source, the foreign source of the information is for security.
What they're blacking out?
Well, that was reported yesterday.
Well, of course it was, but none of us actually know.
It was also reported that they opened up some of these documents and invited the members of Congress, including Nunes, to come over and read them. Okay, and guess what? Nunes didn't bother to do it. This political grandstanding he's done is a threat to national security.
They're hiding things.
No, they're not. They let them come look at it.
Why can't we find out about the FICA court abuse?
How do you know it's abuse?
Because they won't admit it. You're right, we don't know. But we used to think that the people were the power in this country, not the bureaucracy, Franklin. You used to, as a liberal Democrat, you used to be
for national security, John. Now you're not.
Open government.
You used to be for national security. Now you're not.
I'm for
like everything else, you've abandoned all those principles.
I want to know what we're doing.
To blow sunshine up the president's rear end.
I want to know what we're doing. I have a right to see it, just like everyone else does.
You have a right to go see it.
Does Congress have a right to see?
They did. They went and saw it. Refused to look at it.
Have they not requested it?
You understand something? Y'all never took this position before. This is completely new for you.
Let me tell you, I've took this position lots of places. I'll give you a local example. When Lisa was on the county commission, they approved a $40 billion Eurobond debt swap. And the guy from Morgan Keegan, she asked for the prospectus, all of the information on it. He actually refused to give it to her. Won't give that to you. And I was opposed to that, and I'm opposed to this.
Did I miss the part where the Bradley County government has top secret classification for documents?
My point is bureaucracies don't want people to know things because they do bad things. They line their own pockets, or they have philosophical reasons, and they try to hide it and cover it up.
And sometimes Republicans in particular just love abandoning all their previously held positions for political reasons.
I've always been for open
Mueller? Is his investigation starting to fall apart?
No.
Absolutely falling apart.
What about these other judges that are coming?
The judge ate him alive last week.
Guess what? He wasn't in that case.
He wasn't in the case.
No, he passed it off to another bureaucrat.
Let's take a call. Go ahead, caller. You're live.
Hey, good morning. I'm glad we got back to Bradley County now. I'd like to hear you gentlemen talk about in the banner it said hospital war.
Yeah.
About Erlanger going to want to put a emergency department down on exit 20.
You for or against?
Me?
Yeah.
I haven't made a decision. I'm looking at it. But then in Sonoma, I think they came up and said, me too, and then they want to put one out on Peerless Road. And I also wonder how that would be a Class 4 emergency room. If Erlanger put one down there, is it because the specialists, the doctors they have there, or because of what they have in Chattanooga where they could take the patients to? I'd like to hear your gentlemen.
What about needs assessment? You know anything about that?
Beg your pardon?
Needs assessment. Before anybody can open a hospital or do one of these clinics, they have to get a needs assessment approved through the state of Tennessee.
Yeah.
Why do you think they'd have to have a needs assessment?
I don't know. I'm not knowledgeable about that, but this is not the first hospital war they've had here. When Cherokee or Cleveland Community came in the last day that they could take an option on some land, there was one basically back years ago between Bradley and the other hospital.
Yeah. Caller, let me ask you a question. When's the last time you bought a set of new tires for your car?
Well, I'm 80 years old, and I sold my car.
Okay.
Well,
So it's been years. It's been, let's see, I'll answer that question. Maybe 10, 12 years ago, 15.
well, do you think the state ought to tell us how many tire dealerships we can have in Bradley County?
No, but I think some of the tire dealers that was here wish they could.
Oh, I agree. Now, look, I understand that completely. But my point is, I've never understood these needs assessments. I don't understand why the state has any business in telling a private company whether they can or can't try to open a business. And that's capitalism, and the public benefits because whoever provides better service, for example, the local tire guys provide a closer local, edge to that. And so you can go to a chain if you want, but you'll get better service with a lot of our local people that have been here forever. But that's called business. That's called capitalism. Why that doesn't apply to healthcare, I don't understand. I've never understood those needs assessment things.
Years ago, when hello?
Yes.
Yeah, we're here.
Years ago, when a hospital was accredited, like Bradley started out at 52 beds initially, and they had 251 when they put additions on, and then a lot of hospitals around the country didn't have that many beds in operation. And personally, I was for only licensed the hospital for the number of beds that they had available for patients to be put in.
Well, I mean, I'm fine with having all kinds of standards. You should have standards for all these. I just don't understand how a government can say, yes, you can open it. Or, for example, the MRIs. They had to get a needs assessment. We had a local radiology group that tried for years to put another MRI up here. Well, what happens if you have more than one MRI to go to? Prices come down. I mean, look at LASIK surgery. It's never been paid for by insurance. It's never been regulated. And 10 years ago, LASIK surgery cost you $5,000. Today, you can get it for $250. That's what competition will do for you.
And I see that Dalton Hospital advertised that you can go down there and have your test and you get the report in one day at a less price, and they'll give you a better price if you don't have insurance. That's interesting too.
Well, caller, thanks for calling. And
hey, I appreciate you guys. I enjoy listening to intelligent men discuss.
Well, Steve and I appreciate that.
Yeah, we appreciate some other people on here.
You're going to have to be faster.
Have a great day.
Oh, Franklin, I know you got to leave early today, so I'm going to let you talk about anything you want to talk about.
Let's talk about what the caller said there. That's actually
I think we might all agree on that. Somebody tell me why the state should be able to say no.
First of all, Erlanger's not a business, number one. It's not a private business. It's a governmental entity, number one. Number two, the reason they want to come in here, I'll tell you directly, is there is no emergency room I know whose prices are higher than our local emergency room here. None.
So what would it do, just like I talked about, if you had competition?
Wait a minute. They're higher because they're negotiating with insurance companies, or what?
Well, they do, but to address John's point, one could at least make the argument, whether it's completely true or not, it's probably a little grayer than that. But you can certainly make the argument that not having any competition in the area, the insurance companies don't have a lot of leverage in terms of.
Well, look, if the insurance company said no, we want you to go to Erlanger.
Well, you can't do that in a true emergency.
You've got the cost of being transported, and that's a huge cost. So the insurance company probably looks at it and says, you know what? All in all, we're better off to pay a higher price here.
Now, what's actually been happening here is lower level emergencies get fed into Tenova Hospital here, in really traumatic care, get sent down to Erlanger anyway. So they're thinking, well, why not just be up there and do it that way? Okay.
And look, here's what's really hard, and this is how I guess I always get in trouble. I would root for the local hospital. I would root for Tenova, but having said that, I'm not against the competition.
And understand, Tenova is not a local hospital.
Anymore.
It's a large corporation that has like 30-something hospitals around the place.
That's true, too.
Let's take another call.
Hey, you've heard that song that says, "It's me again, Lord," right?
That's right.
It's me again.
All right.
The Blue Cross and those large insurance companies negotiates with the hospital for a certain price per day or procedure and all that, and they don't pay the same prices to the hospital that the ordinary patient pays like us if we don't have insurance.
Right.
That's right.
They negotiate that. So they're not paying necessarily those high prices, and if the hospital will not negotiate a fair price with them, then they'll pull away from them. They've done that before down in Chattanooga.
Yeah, but in Chattanooga you have an option. You don't have any option up here. That's the problem. You know what'd be interesting to know is how much they pay Tenova at other Tenova hospitals. You know, do they pay all the Tenova hospitals at this same rate, or is it individual markets?
Yeah, well, I need to keep my mouth shut, but I worked at Bradley for 43 years, and I was in charge of purchasing. And one day they said, "Well, we're going to review all the contracts." I said, "Oh Lord, do I have all those together?" And what we ended up reviewing was the contracts that was with different insurance companies, and that was quite interesting. And I don't recall all about it because I've been retired since 2000. Thanks again, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
And the radiology really killed me. You've got a radiology group willing to invest several $1 million in an MRI. At the time, we only had one MRI in the county. And for years, they were put off and told no. Now, why? I can tell you in dentistry, we switched over to digital x-rays because the public wanted it and because there was a benefit to the public. And if you wanted to remain competitive, you needed to switch over to digital x-rays. So you look at that and you go, why would the government actually impede technology advances?
Yeah.
Well, part of the reason is because when it becomes more available like that, you end up with a lot more of those services being performed and being paid for by government insurance programs that may not be necessary.
But deal with that correctly.
John,
And
I've said
you know
many
what? You're
times-
being kind, because you know what the real reason is, because the hospitals that are in place have lobbyists in Nashville who lobby the needs assessment committee and say, we don't want that competition in the community. That's what happens. You know damn well that's
We
what
can
happens.
charge what we want to now and don't
They
mess with
lobby against it because they don't want the competition.
That's right. There's a reason there's not a price tag on anything when you walk in the door of a hospital, isn't there?
Sure, because there is no one price.
Now, I will tell you, and I've said this before,
not.
the whole concept of insurance is part of our problem in healthcare. Because when you don't have any skin in the game, you don't care what things cost. And so when people have a $40 copay, they go to the doctor at the drop of a hat. If they had to pay the $150 visit, they go, well, you know what, maybe I'll take an aspirin first before I go.
Yeah.
And I think that concept works fine with basic health care
That's true.
services. It doesn't work really
With
very well
cancer.
with an appendicitis.
Although I will say this, I've had a lot of patients in my office just recently that said, I was told that they couldn't treat my cancer. I got online, I looked at, for example, Cancer Centers of America and called them, and they said, you know what, we can treat it. Come on down here. Mm-hmm. So people are smart. People look for alternative care.
At least there's one thing I can say about the internet these days. It probably does make that kind of information more accessible
available
than it would have been otherwise. So people can do it.
Well, we've
with
always
that.
said that it's a mixed bag with the internet.
Well, I hope you all have a lovely next 10 minutes, but I have to go.
Franklin's leaving early today.
Well, I hope your opposing counsel is forthcoming with all basic facts on the front end of any agreements you make, okay?
They generally are, John.
Right. I hope they are.
Bye, Franklin. He's leaving the building.
Well, Franklin has left the building.
He has
to
left
do the
building.
Elvis.
Oh, a storm is coming, Franklin. Nunes threatened Sessions. I want to get back to that. What do you think, John? What's going on? What's going on with Sessions? Something's got him handcuffed.
Well, I mean, the problem is he's sort of in a no-win situation. You know, if he goes one way, the press is going to hammer the crap out of him, and he does, as law enforcement, he does have to worry about how the image is going to be portrayed to the American people. You know, is the press going to say this is a Hoover type situation where justice is being bent to the whims of the president, which is probably what they'll say. Or does he make all the Trump people mad when he's not, hammering people that may need to be hammered?
Well, do you think that, this thing's going to come to an end anytime soon?
I think Mueller's losing. I think when the case that just hit last week with the judge more or less called Mueller a liar.
Well, there's 3 judges that came
Well,
down.
there's 2 or 3. Ellis, I think, is one of them that really, really hammered him and said, look, you're going to have to show me some stuff. And they're refusing to turn stuff over. Their argument back to this judge was, you don't have a right to see what we are doing and why we're doing it. So I think you're going to have some real legal loggerheads here that are going to be significant in how they break.
Do you think there was a conspiracy in the Obama administration?
Yes, absolutely, I do.
And it was to try to change the election, or to try to get Trump back out of office after he was elected?
I think the seeds of it were percolating long before the election, but I think the assumption was he wasn't going to win. And so, I think they were sort of discussing what ifs in probably a lighthearted manner, like, oh, what if this happened? But they didn't really think it would. Once he won, then I think it kicked into high gear. And they said, we've got to undermine this guy. I mean, look, James Clapper, it's clear what he did. They knew that the press was looking for a reason to publish the dossier. And so James Clapper tells Comey to brief the president. He then turns around and leaks the fact that he briefed the president. That became the news hook that allowed CNN and BuzzFeed to publish the dossier. So James Clapper set that in motion on purpose.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
I think there was a total conspiracy against our president that was put in place. I think they have gone after him viciously. And this thing, Franklin, he just keeps defending these people. It's just amazing how this president is being hammered just constantly.
Well, look, the testimony that was released, some of the unredacted stuff, Comey and McKay both in congressional testimony said they didn't think that Mike Flynn lied. Well, that tells you right there, and yet he was prosecuted and destroyed effectively for supposedly lying. Yet Hillary's people, they know they did lie on some of the Huma Abedin lied.
Why is there not...
Cheryl Mills lied. Not only did they not prosecute him, they allowed Cheryl Mills to be Hillary's attorney, which gave her attorney-client privilege over anything they may have done.
Why has there not been anything investigated towards the Clintons and Obamas? I mean, there's nothing.
Well, look, the collusion, we have proven collusion. The collusion, we know that Michael Steele got his information from Russian intelligence officers. So the information was put in the dossier. The dossier was paid for by Hillary Clinton and the Democrats in order to influence our election. That's collusion.
Yes.
We've proven that. But you don't see a single story about that. They're not even arguing anymore that didn't happen, but somehow that's not collusion, according to the Democrats.
I don't know. They're just a witch hunt. I mean, it's just nonstop. I'm so tired of the ridiculing of our president. I wish they'd just sit back and let him try to do a few things that he does well.
Now, let me address, though, what Franklin is talking about with me. And Trump is his own worst enemy.
Oh, I know. Everybody says he needs to keep his mouth shut.
One of the problems with some of the really good news out there is he cannot be quiet and not stir up a hysterical story. And so the hysterical story sucks all the air out of the room. And the really good news, like historically low unemployment rates, black unemployment, Hispanic
they're not
unemployment,
reporting it.
Doesn't get covered. It wouldn't get covered much anyway, but he gives them an excuse. And so he's his own worst enemy with this.
You really think it'd be better?
I think they'd have a harder time. The point is, he makes it easy for them to do what they want to do.
Let's talk about the elections that took place last night. Are you up to par on
Well, I
who
mean,
won?
West Virginia was one that we were most worried about, and the guy that we were most worried about getting it came in third.
Yeah. The one, wait a minute. West Virginia, the guy that Trump wanted to win, won.
Right.
Okay. And the
But
guy,
my point is, Trump has actually learned a lesson. The crazy guy who is very populist, who's been just got out of jail for a mine collapse, was saying all kinds of wild stuff. Trump figured out from Alabama that didn't work, and so he actually tweeted out last night, "Look, we learned that lesson in Alabama. We've got to take this seat. Don't be stupid. Don't vote for this guy." He actually said, "Don't vote." It was kind of interesting. He said, "Don't vote for this guy. Vote for either of the other two." So he didn't actually pick one.
Yeah.
He just said, "Don't vote for this guy."
and that split the vote up.
The guy came in third that he said not to vote for, and the guy was crazy.
Ohio. What's going on in Ohio?
Ohio's a hard state. There's really, really liberal people in Ohio, and there's very, very conservative people in Ohio. So it's
I got relatives in Ohio.
definitely
I
a
know.
purple state.
How'd the election come out on that last night? Do you know?
Yeah, the Republicans have picked good people.
Okay.
You know,
Indiana.
we've come out with pretty good people.
Indiana.
Indiana is a good state for us. The Democrat senator is in trouble there, and the most trouble is in Missouri. Claire McCaskill's in the most trouble, numbers-wise. Her reelect is, I think, 37%.
Question. James Comey. He's been going around with these news shows and so forth, and he's been caught in several lies right now. Am I right or wrong?
Absolutely.
So what do you think is going to be the future of him?
Well, I think he's discredited. Now, whether he gets prosecuted for lying to the problem with lying to Congress is there's not a lot of enforcement mechanism there. But he clearly, either he lied or McCabe lied. It's clear probably they both lied.
Is there ever going to be a trial with the liars?
Probably not.
It's amazing. It's just amazing to me. There's this much chaos going on in politics. I did not realize how bad our country's politics were.
I wouldn't say it's terrible. I'll give you an example. In 1976, Bill Brock, was his family owned Brock Candy Company. One of the issues in that race, he was running against Sasser. One of the issues was that he only paid $1,500 in income tax. And my numbers may be off a little bit, but something approximate that. And they said, "Oh, look how rich he is, and he only paid $1,500. And the press ran with that, and the press hammered that. And now, keep in mind that, his wife had substantial assets from her family, and so you don't know what income tax she paid. And secondly, nothing was illegal in what he did, and they didn't even allege there was anything illegal in what he did. Just that he only paid $1,500, and he's wealthy, and that's terrible. Okay, now look, I understand that being an issue, but the press hammered it. Here's the problem. Sasser, who was a former state Democratic Party chair, campaign manager for Ray Blanton, the most corrupt governor we'd ever had, he actually didn't pay his income tax. The FBI had to impound his house to get back taxes out of him. So at the same time that the press was hammering Bill Brock for legally paying the least amount of taxes that he could, they said nothing about Sasser actually evading taxes and having the FBI impound his house. So this has gone on for years. The press has always had a slant, and that's one of the most dangerous things that we face now. We really don't have a free press, but only by their own choosing.
I want to ask you a question. What does OPEC stand for? OPEC.
Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, I believe.
OPEC basically is what keeps the price of gas.
It's a cartel that decides what the price will be.
The price.
Well, the problem is they decide on what production's going to be, and that makes
That's right.
the price.
In other words, if they want to run the price up, they just slow down production.
Right.
And that's what's happened now.
Right.
For them to get the price up to where it is currently. How does that work? I don't understand how this works in Is there anything that can be done to try to regulate that?
Well,
I mean, basically, that's
actually, Trump has done something about that. Trump has opened up more drilling. What happens is we've changed the dynamics of OPEC because we've increased our production so high. Basically, they don't have anywhere near the control that they've had.
Well, why has our price gone up if we've increased our production?
Well, our price has actually gone down. A barrel of oil, well, my point is a couple of years ago it was $4 a gallon. So it's gone up a little lately. You're right. It fluctuates up and down.
It's gone up a lot lately.
Well, not like $4 though.
Well, I know, John, but when let's say it's $1.50 and $1.25, and then it goes up to $1.75, and then it lowered down to $1.58.
Well, one of the problems is with gas. Gas is the kind of thing that you look at regularly, and you look at it per gallon. So if you go back, like for example, I remember the KO that used to be right over here on Key Street. I remember 29 cents a gallon.
I do too.
See people lined up. The problem is you remember 29 cents a gallon. If you take 29 cents a gallon in 1978 and you adjust it for inflation to see what that actually is in today's dollars, we're not that far off of it.
I remember when it was $1, when it went to $1 a gallon.
I'll have to look up the percentages and the numbers, but I'll figure that up for you, and I'll tell you what next week. I'll tell you what 29 cents a gallon is in today's dollars, and what you'll find is gas really hadn't gone up that much.
I remember I was in the car business when gas went to $1, and it almost put General Motors out of business.
Oh yeah, but they started making more fuel-efficient cars.
Yeah, they started making the Gremlins.
That's AMC. That wasn't GM. That was AMC,
Okay.
American Motors.
Okay. Well, listen, we've had a long morning, so I guess we better go.
Well, let me tell you one thing. University of Kansas passed concealed campus carry, and all of the liberals went crazy. This professor out there came in wearing a bulletproof vest and said, try to forget that I'm wearing a vest, and I'll try to forget that you could be packing a .44 Magnum. Well, in the first 6 months, the university's Office of Public Safety reported no weapons violations in 2017, whereas 14 occurred between 08 and 16. And there were 671 criminal offenses reported on campus in 2017, down 13% from 2016. Additionally, they saw only 56 reported thefts compared to 213 the year before. So campus carry came, no shootouts have happened, no violations have happened, and crime has actually gone down. By the way, the NRA convention, largest number of in attendance ever.
Well, it's an interesting world that we live in, and I guess we ought to have an assignment one week where you have to watch CNN all week, and
You
Franklin,
said that before.
and Franklin has to watch Fox all week. What do you think?
I think that my stomach is upset enough already. I think I'd have to double my reflux medicine.
All right, folks, have a good day, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson, John Stanberry, and Franklin